Let's tell you about the southern African nation of Botswana now. There are concerns over an alleged deterioration in the human rights situation in the country ahead of the 2024 elections. The judicial arm of the African Union, African Courts on Human and People's Rights, is accusing the government of using threats and the use of the criminal justice system to silence political dissent. There are also worries that the media and those seeking to assemble for political reasons are being restricted. President Masisi has been accused of intimidating former President Ian Khama and his family. We're now joined by Adam Smith-Anthony, international and human rights lawyer at Omnia Strategy. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. What do you understand about the situation in the southern African nation?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be with you and a real privilege to join you during Freedom Month in particular. It's critical, I think, that we all, and especially in Southern Africa, pay attention to the situation in Botswana. And there's a really concerning slide in the rule of law and human rights more broadly underway in that country. And this is something that's being brought to the attention of the UN right at the moment in Geneva, which will gather at the beginning of May to consider Botswana's human rights record and recent performance.
This is known to be one of Africa's most stable democracies. Where did things go wrong?
You're exactly right to say that, and I think there's such an opportunity to regain that mantle. And everyone wants to see a strong, stable Botswana based on and built upon the rule of law. I think where it's gone wrong is a consolidation of power within the Masisi administration, and perhaps on their part, the nervousness about the growing political opposition from various quarters, which has meant an increasingly repressive regime, unwilling to tolerate dissent or even the most mild political opposition. And as you mentioned in the introduction, we've seen that most strikingly in a campaign of political persecution against former President Ian Khama.
Yeah, and the government of Botswana actually last month responded to that. It dismissed it as outrageous and unfortunate, some of the utterances of the former president. Are there investigative teams, as we usually see with the United Nations, or bodies on the continent that will go to Botswana on the ground and get the facts?
I think that would be very welcome. And just to touch on that point around the defence, such as it is, has been offered by President Masisi and his government. The government in Botswana received an official communication from the UN Special Rapporteur on executions, a lady, Dr. Agnes Callamard, who's now head of Amnesty International globally, accusing them, or rather repeating and asking for an account of their response to accusations that the government is responsible for downgrading former President Khama's security details at a time when he is the target of, and has been the target of, assassination attempts, some of which have been linked in reports to the government itself. Now, I've seen the response that the government of Botswana provided to the UN in response to these very serious allegations, and to be honest, it looks like they haven't really put much thought into it at all. Lots of empty rhetoric, lots of flat denials, but a real failure, unfortunately, to deal with the substance of those allegations and complaints.
This hunt on Ian Khama, for lack of a better expression, what do you perceive that is? What do you perceive as behind that?
As I say, I think there's perhaps a paranoia or an extreme nervousness about the fact that former President Khama still enjoys a lot of influence, still has a lot to say. He is on record of being very concerned about the direction of travel in Botswana. And so I think perhaps the Masisi government has been trying to shut that down and remove this nuisance that they see as a political opposition. But I think it's also concerning that this campaign against Ian Khama has plenty of collateral damage. And I think the Masisi administration have proved themselves to be extremely unconcerned about who they damage as they pursue the former president, including public servants in Botswana, reputable and well-known figures in South Africa, and in fact also using an organisation that has been reported as being of extreme concern and perhaps even a promoter of white nationalism ideology. I'm talking, of course, about AfriForms, which will be known to many of your audience.
I beg your pardon, you're talking about?
AfriForums. It's a private organisation. It's based stringent and strong criticisms of being tied to and promoters of white nationalism, and in fact they are involved in various pieces of litigation, for example around various iconography of that troubling ideology, and a failure to recognise apartheid in South Africa as a serious crime that it was.
Okay, thank you very much. Adam Smith-Anthony, international and human rights lawyer at Omnia Strategy. We are going to be petitioning the government of Botswana to get the other side of the story.